like it like that. So let's talk criminal justice reform and the need for criminal justice reform, because I personally know that criminal justice reform is needed because there's far too many people of African descent who are locked away for decades, never to see society again. And some of the crimes are very, put it this way, if it were a different race who had committed that exact same crime, they would receive less than half of that time. So I'm not making this into a race thing at all with respects to the citizens. I'm talking about the system. And I want to be very clear with that I'm speaking about the system, not the citizen, because the system is morally corrupt. We live in a system to where we know about the crack epidemic of the 80s. We know about that. I know all too well about it because I was a part of it. I was a problem in it, and I helped make matters worse. I understand that. But I also want us to understand as a collective that if we don't stand up now and do something to change what the system has going for us, then we will soon meet our demise. Someone said they can't hear me. I'm going to make sure you hear me right now. I know you can hear me now. So, as I was saying, if we don't stand up for who we are and what we are right now, then the system is going to overtake all of us, because right now, the largest growing population of jail inmates and prisoners is Black women. Why is that? I'm clarifying this. The largest population, the largest demographic of inmates and prisoners is Black women. And let me tell you why I think it's that way. Because during the crack epidemic of the 80s, when the crack, cocaine, and the powder became an issue, because the big men who would sell the kilos and all of this powder, which was in the white communities, they would get far less time than the Black guy who was selling crack on the street, the small guy, right? So that caused the influx of incarceration, which is known today as mass incarceration. That contributed to that. Then you add profiling into the fray. So that added to it, the profiling. The profiling of who, you say? Do I need to say more? The profiling of people who look like us. That's the profiling that I'm talking about. So now, that caused an influx of incarceration. That contributed to what is known today as mass incarceration. So today, America has a mass incarceration problem. But more importantly, that problem falls on the shoulders of us. Why? Because people that look like me are who is filling all the prisons and all the jails. Let me start off by saying like this here. We have a bail system in America. We have a bail system in America, right? That the bail system means that if you should go to jail for a parking ticket, speeding ticket, some criminal activity, you get a bond, right? They give you a bond. They say, if you pay your bond, we will release you pending your next court date. most of us, they know that we come from impoverished neighborhoods. So obviously, we don't get the bond. We're not able to pay the bond, so they might as well not give us a bond, right? They may as not well give us a bond because we don't have the money to pay a bond. So what we do is we will languish in jail. We languish in jail. We can't pay our bond. Now, because I'm in jail and I can't pay my bond, I can't make it to work. I can't take my children to school. I can't take care of my household. That becomes a problem. Why does that become a problem? That becomes a problem because once you are destabilized in your life, imbalanced in your life, you lose sight of your goal in your life, you become discouraged, and you end up losing everything that you worked for a simple, maybe a parking ticket. In some situations, it's a more serious case. So now, here we are. We're in jail. We're fighting for criminal justice reform. We want to be released from prison, jail, county jail, juvenile home, wherever it's at. But we're faced with the monumental task of trying to pay this bail. Meanwhile, our mental is deteriorating because some of us have never been to jail, and we're scared of the thought of going to jail. So when it does happen, which statistics show that by the age of 18, 80% of Black men or boys will have had an interaction with law, a negative interaction with law enforcement. Those are just the facts. 80% of young Black boys or Black men will have had a negative reaction with the law by the age of 18. I know, listen, this is not a topic that many people want to hear, talk about, but I'm going to tell you just like this here. You don't want to talk about it now, and God forbid it happens, but you're going to want to talk about it when your son or your daughter becomes one of the victims of this criminal justice system that victimizes and monetizes off our poverty. You're going to want to talk about it then. You're going to look for anybody that you could talk about it to. You're going to want to talk about it to anybody, because I share with you right now vital information so that we could come together to dismantle a systemic racist system, and we could begin to work on building a system that works for everyone. There's not different rules when you go to the suburbs than there are when you go to the city, where most minorities tend to live at. I say tend to live at because we live everywhere, and I don't want to segregate us like that. I don't want to minimize our impact on society, so I say where we tend to live at or where we tend to hang out at. So, again, criminal justice reform is needed in the United States. We have politicians who come to our neighborhoods, the same broken down, crime-ridden, drug-infested communities. They come to us for our vote every election cycle. They come to us for our vote every election cycle because our vote matters. But yet, it's this same politician that comes to our communities to trick us into voting for them while they're voting on a bill to lock our loved one up. That's why we need to wake up. That's why people like Ron DeSantis down in Florida, he say a person being woke is negative. See, a woke mind is a strong mind. A woke man is an informed man. A woke man is an intelligent man. A woke man is an independent man. A woke man is a free man. So they don't want us to be woke. That's why they, listen, why would there be a big hoopla about people being woke? Why? Look in the dictionary what woke means. That means you are no longer asleep. You are woke. I want my people to be woke. If I was running for some type of office, I want to deal with woke people. And for those who are not woke, I want to wake them up. Because I want them to become a part of the democratic process. I want them to become a part of their community. So I want to wake them up. But yet, it's a big thing. Let me put it this way. Conservative Republicans have made it an issue for people to be woke. Why is that? Why is that? Because those are the same politicians, and I'm not just singling out Republicans, I'm singling them out on this particular topic of being woke, but I'm talking about across the spectrum, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever the hell they are. It doesn't matter to me. All of them come to these broken down, thrown away, ostracized, demonized, dilapidated, impoverished, crime-ridden, and drug-infested, low-level communities, displaced communities, misplaced communities, disenfranchised communities. They come to us for our votes every single election cycle. Do you know they spend millions of dollars? I'm telling you something I know personally. I know this personally. They spend millions of dollars to infiltrate our neighborhoods, our communities. I'm saying they spend millions upon millions of dollars to infiltrate our neighborhoods to get their message out. And we have to stand up and recognize we have to wake up. You know, even the Democrats never once defended us being woke. They never even defend. When the Republicans made it an issue about being woke, they demonized that term. Woke. People would walk around with woke on their shirt. I'm woke. In conversation, I'm woke would always be a part of it. The Republicans demonize us right now for being woke. We need to ask ourselves why. Why do they want us to stay asleep? Why? Because we're being dehumanized right before our eyes on the news, in TV shows, in music, on screen, in plays, in society, by the justice system, by the healthcare system, by the housing system. We're being dehumanized, right? We're being mistreated, right? We're being treated unequal, right? And to top it all off, when we complain about this type of stuff, or when we act out our rage, we act out our trauma, we act out our depression, we act out our mental illness developed as a result of our displacement, misplacement, misinformation, diseducation, miseducation. When we act out these characteristics, we act out of our poverty, our hunger for something more than nothing. We're then demonized. We're then demonized. And they make up laws to outlaw our behavior. Our behavior. They make laws to outlaw our in other words, it's against the law for you to act like that, be like that, think like that. It's against the law for you to be woke. So, again, this is why mass incarceration is such a big issue in America. You have a disenfranchised people who was placed in an area of a city that the government, the American government, referred to this place as the projects. Look up what the word projects mean. I'm going to look it up for you. We're going to look up projects because I want y'all to really understand what's really happening here. I want y'all to really understand why being woke is such a negative term in the minds of so many politicians. It says the projects. This is one definition. An individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. A research project. Think of that, a researched project, right? Research, like a lab rat. They put rats in the lab, put rats in a tube so they can research it, see what makes it tick. And then once they tap into what makes it tick, now they can change what makes it tick and control that rat, control that mice, control the very genetics that make up that individual. So let me go on and say, this is North American, a government subsidized housing development with relatively low rent. Her family still lives in the projects. The projects. Ain't that something? Projects. An individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim, a research project. Do y'all see why they don't want us to be woke? Do y'all see why the criminal justice system is so fraught with people from impoverished neighborhoods? Because we was placed into a project for research purposes. And they wanted to see how we would survive in those projects. And then the projects, they began to take this out and they began to take that out. And they slowly began to take everything. And after they started taking away, they provided these GM jobs for low income people. Our fathers and grandfathers and them, if they didn't go to school, they couldn't work at Ford and Chrysler. They could work at GM because GM was like the ghetto, motor factory or car factory. So a lot of our parents, I know in Detroit and in Ohio, worked at GM because they were the ones that would accept people that did not have a education, right? So, and that was part of the project, right? So here we are. Crime and punishment in America. We need criminal justice reform right now. I am a product. Me as a person, Demetrius Knuckles Ill. I am a product of a mother who was a heroin addict and a crack addict. I am a product of a mother who had also been shot in her head twice and robbed early on in her life, which drove her to, after they gave her pain medications, drove her to delve deeper into trying to succor her pain by using other drugs, which came about heroin and the pills, the T's and blues back in the 70s and early 80s. It turned from there to heroin, and it turned from heroin to adding cocaine. So I'm a product of a mother who was deeply involved in drug usage. I'm also the product of a father who was a heroin addict early on in his life, started early on in his life. I'm the product of a father who was an alcoholic. I'm the product of parents whom invited many people over to our house so they can engage in needle sharing. Needle sharing, heroin needle sharing. I'm the product of parents whom were so wrapped up in their drug addiction that they failed to acknowledge that their children, their 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old children, was witnessing people overdose on drugs right in their face, commit crimes right in their face, carry guns right in their face, engage in violence, all types of violence right in their face. I'm the product of those type of parents. I am the nephew of aunts and uncles who lost themselves in their addiction as well. I'm the cousin of many cousins whom lost themselves in their addictions as well. But more importantly, I am a product of a society that do not care whatsoever about those who live in their research projects. The product of a society that strips minorities of opportunity. Sure, some of the things have changed now. I am talking about my upbringing, the product, and how this mass incarceration that the system thought up years ago, how they brought it to fruition. Because they knew that if they got to the minds of our grandparents and parents, we're not even talking about the ancestral effect and history of trauma. We're talking about our direct, those whom we have seen with our own eyes and ate at the table with our own mouths and sat at tables in a house with our own bodies. We're talking about our parents and grandparents, our aunts and uncles. The system craftily and corruptedly indoctrinated the minds of our parents and grandparents. They put them into projects such as the slaveholders put our ancestors in cells, in jails, little huts, bunched them all up, couldn't even breathe. No toilet facilities, no fresh drinking water, no food on the tables. They had to scrape It was a snake pit. It was a zoo. It was a every man for themselves situation. And our parents and grandparents had to survive. So they had to do what they had to do to survive. And some of them wasn't strong enough in their resolve at the time. And so they fell victim to their weakness. And some type of addiction overtook them because they were nothing but a research project, an experiment. That's why we were forced to live in the projects. Now, why am I saying all of this project? What the heck do that got to do with the fact that we need criminal justice reform today? What does that have to do with that? It has everything to do with it. Because criminal justice reform became a theme in the 80s and became more popular in the 90s and became ultra popular in the 2000s. Y'all see the dates I said? The 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And the 2000s, 2010 and up, is now it's about to bust like a bubble. Why? Let's go back to what I talked about. In the 80s, what epidemic existed in the minority neighborhoods? The crack era, right? Because the 70s saw a lot of people die off. In the 70s, a lot of our parents and grandparents were working at GM. If they finished school, they possibly made it to Ford or Chrysler. But by the 80s, when the crack epidemic hit, approximately 82, 83, and the dynamic in the minority neighborhood changed. The whole dynamic, the mindset changed. Because like a lab rat, with those doctors doing the lab to these rats, they pick out certain things, characteristics of this rat to control that rat, right? To make that rat unable to develop survival instincts, right? And in some rats, they inject in that rat some type of chemical that causes that rat to be ultra aggressive, right? So they take away certain stuff to make certain ones be passive, and they inject certain ones with stuff to make them be aggressive. And they take away their ability to survive independently. In other words, they make sure that that rat, that lab rat, doesn't have anything that it needs to survive unless that anything comes through the government, right? It's a lab rat, a research project, right? And that's what they did to our people. We are their lab rat. Whereas they take our humanity, they take our ability to be independent, they take our natural humility away, they take our natural genius away, they take our ability to be innovative away, they take our ability to feel away, they take our religion away, they take our culture away, and they take our ability to understand and execute love away. They take this Because once you have stripped a person of everything that they ever knew, once you have stripped them of everything they ever knew, now they become dependent. They become dependent. They got their hands out because they don't have nothing else. Their hope is lost. They're living in a stage of darkness. Any speck of light, false or otherwise, we look for. I did it personally. This is not something I'm just talking about. Lost in the darkness, imagine being lost in the darkness. There are no walls. There are no walls to feel. And it seems like there's no one else to help you find a way except those other people who are lost with you. What do? We band together. We band together, lock arms, and if we lock arms long enough, somebody is going to feel some wall. And we'll let that person who's filling that wall to lead us forward or backwards. However we go, we're going to find a way out. Because we've been asleep too long in this dark. And they don't want us to wake up. And soon as we stumble upon a rock, and we find one other rock, and we do like this, boom, boom, and we could see a spark come from that rock. We know that now we could use that rock to create just a spark of light, and we could keep on patting that together to create that spark of light to find our way out of the dark. But the system didn't think that we would even be intelligent enough to find such a object to help lead us out of darkness. The rock is symbolic to our foundation. Understanding is the rock on which we build ourselves. Understanding is the rock on which we build ourselves. So if we don't understand what's going on, we have no foundation when it comes to attacking criminal justice reform, ending mass incarceration, defending our communities, rebuilding our communities. If we have no understanding, none of these things are possible. But if we should find just a spark of understanding, all things are possible. We need criminal justice reform in America right now. We need criminal justice reform in America right now, not tomorrow, today. I know some people don't want to talk about this. I'm asking that anybody on here, please share out my live feed. If you're listening to me, I'm asking that you please share out my live feed. I know it's not a topic that people want to gravitate toward and jump up and down for and that type of thing. But I'm talking about the reality of life for people like me. And if you have even an iota of understanding of what I'm talking about, then you know that what I'm talking about is true. I mince my words not. I'm saying what I mean, and I'm meaning what I say. We need criminal justice reform right now. The largest growing population of people in jail and in prison are Black women. Why is that so significant? Why are they going after the black women now? Why? Simple. They already locked up all the black men. And now it's not even the women that they're thinking about, it's the children. Because if they go after the black women, the black men are already in jail or in graves, right? So many are in jail or in graves. Why don't we go after the women? Because the women are the caretakers for the children now. So if we get the women out the way, the children got to go through the system or go through the, whether it's the juvenile system, the prison system, or the foster care system, or the streets. One way or the other, the children will become failures, right? This is their thinking. That if we lock up the women now, we already got the men gone, let's lock up the women. Because if we lock up the women, the children are all ours. We can do to them what we want to do. We can create laws like we did in the 80s that corporally punished crack dealers while the big time dealers got away. In the 90s, if we allow them, if we get to their children today, we could subject them to the laws of the 90s, the 1993 crime bill, architected by none other than President Joe Biden, signed in law by none other than Bill Clinton. We could subject them to the strictures, to the penalties of this 1993 crime bill, which now took away opportunity and chance for incarcerated individuals to pursue several appeals in an effort to find freedom or get the court to reduce their sentence and things of that nature. So the system right now wants to lock up the women so they can get to the children. Children are free. They are all ours now. There is no free agents amongst them anymore. You belong to us. Because then, if we lock that child up in any of our systems, the juvenile system, the foster care system, or the prison system, or the streets, which is going to lead them to any of those systems, now they are defenseless. Take away the mother, they're hopeless. Bob is gone already. So just imagine that. Because now that child becomes a product of the streets. And we already know the streets don't love nobody. Streets don't love nobody. And I think that the morgue tells that story. The funeral homes that we ride past every single day, and you see funerals for young people every single day. You turn on every news station, you're hearing about young people dying every single day. The proof is in the pudding. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. So, hold on one second, y'all. So, I want us to think about that because, you know, we allow a system to exist that doesn't benefit us at all. I mean, when I say it doesn't benefit us, I mean, literally, it doesn't benefit us at all. And we're constantly being the laughing stock. We're constantly being the jail bait. We're constantly being the prisoner, the convict, the inmate. We're constantly being the slave to a demonic and racist system. And kind of reminds me when we was just talking about the solar eclipse the other day, and they were saying that one of the significance of Black liberation concerning the eclipse was that it was during that time that Nat Turner, his light came on. Because it was during that total darkness, that period of time, that he told his soldiers that it's time that we rise up. Remember, I was just telling y'all the story about imagining yourself in the darkness, lost, and all you know is that it's people around you who are also lost. And I said, if you just lock arms in that darkness, you stumble upon that rock, that speck of light, boom, and you could just see just the glare of light give you direction. The light come on, and you say, we can do this. That's what I'm telling us about this criminal justice reform, specifically here in Michigan, because it is terrible. It is terrible that Michigan has the oldest population of prisoners in the world. We have the oldest population of prisoners in the world. We are number one. We are number one in censuses. We have the longest. Prisoners serve the most time in Michigan than any other place in the world. Prisoners serve more time. Why is that? So I'm giving us something to really think about, because we have to imagine. We have to just imagine how in Michigan, why it is that we serve more time than any place in the world. Why? See, because we are a project. Michigan is a project. We one of the government projects, and they taking full advantage. Let me go back to this here. I said this in a few podcasts ago, that 62 cents of every American dollar goes to war. It funds the war. So now that leaves 38 cents, right? What percentage of that do you think that the American government used to build prisons and pay people to work in those prisons and pay law enforcement to create laws and pay Congress and law enforcement to create and enforce laws that will help fill those prisons? Because the laws and ordinances that exist in minority neighborhoods don't exist in the suburbs. Why is that? There are more laws in minority communities, in minority cities. There are more laws in minority cities than there are in upscale suburban neighborhoods. Why? It's all a part of the project. It's all a part of the project. And as long as we sit up and don't fight these powers, as long as we stay asleep, these powers are going to do to us what they want to do, because we sleep. But if we would just wake up, just wake up. See, let's go back to this here. The Republicans made it an issue. It was taboo. It was demonized. It was ostracized. It was almost criminalized. Matter of fact, some people even lost their job for supporting this idea of being woke. Why was that such a big issue? Why was being woke such a big issue? Somebody tell me something. Somebody on here, I'm asking that y'all share out my live feed. I'm asking that y'all subscribe to my podcast channel, my YouTube channel. Comment, like, share. I'm asking that y'all do these things. This is not for self-aggrandizement. It's not for me. I do this for us. I do this for people who think like me, people who want to say something but just may not know how to say it or may not feel like saying it at the time or for whatever reason. I do this for us. This is not for me. This is not for me. I gained my freedom after 28 years in prison. But my freedom means nothing to me. It is meaningless if I can't pull people up like people pulled me up. I was in a hole. I was in a hole. I was asleep. Islam. I was asleep. But somebody found and seen enough potential in me that they say, this one right here, wake him up. See, we got to realize that you can't wake everybody up at once. Because if you wake everybody up at once, we're going to tear up something. So you have to wake a few up at a time. Because those few going to teach others how to see the light, to wake them up. But you can't wake everybody up at the same time because we will tear up something. Is this not what happens every single time a police involved shooting happens? Everybody light come on at once, and what happens? Some get tore up, right? You can't wake everybody up at once. But I'm encouraging you to find somebody that you see potential in, who may be asleep, nodding off a little bit. Wake them up. Because it's a reason why the Republicans don't want us to be woke. They don't want to, and it's amazing if you really think about it, they don't want us to be woke right around election time. Come on, I'm going to say that again. The Republicans don't want us to be woke right around election time. So the year leading up to election, they don't want us to be woke. Ain't that what happened last year with Ron DeSantis? And now it's an election year. They don't want us to be woke. Why? It happens right around election time. We don't want people to be woke. We can take advantage of them while they sleep. This is how they did us with criminal justice, the mass incarceration in the criminal justice field. We were asleep. We were asleep in 1980. When first of all, Nixon and them was talking about being tough on crime. That was the 70s. Nixon was talking about being tough on crime. Then it flew right over President Carter's head and landed in Ronald Reagan's hands. And Ronald Reagan get on the news talking about crack is whack. And he continued that tough on crime stance. And George Bush. And that was the Republicans. And then what happened in 1990s? 1994 to be exact. Doing that tough on crime stuff that created the mass incarceration trend that allowed people of minority descent to get more time for crack cocaine than big suburban Caucasian individuals would get for pounds and kilos of cocaine. Come on. 1994, Bill Clinton signs a bill that was architect back Joe Biden called the 1994 crime bill. That bill locked people in prison. That bill made it hard for people to get out of prison, no matter how much you changed your life. No matter how much of an impact, a great impact, positive impact that you may have had on the lives of other prisoners and people all around you. That crime bill took away all of that potential, all of that opportunity, all of that development, achievements, and it took away all of that. It rained on all of our parade, because now this meant that sons and daughters who were once thinking or told by their father who was locked up that I'll be out soon, son or daughter, I'll be out, wife, I'll be out, mama, I'll be out. I changed my life around. That 1994 crime bill ruined all those chances. It ruined all those chances. Brothers and sisters who once told their loved ones that they'll be out soon, 28 years later, finally released. 28 years later. And not every case was like that. But I'm just saying, you get the point. The 1994 crime bill, that only solidified the tough on crime stance that the Republican had. But this was now the Democrats. By 1999, in Michigan, the Democrats come up with a plan to make individuals do 100% of their time in Michigan. It was called the Truth in Sentencing Act. That means that if you're given 10 or 20 years in jail, you're going to for sure do 10 years. Ain't no good behavior for you. I don't care how much you change your life within the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. You're going to do 10 years minimum. And the chance of you getting out after that 10 years is slim to none. Because now they're going to say you need some programming. We'll see you next year. So now you're working on your 11th year. When you see the parole board again, they're going to say, well, you should have did this too. And you're going to say, well, why didn't y'all tell me that then? And they're going to say, well, you should have knew that, because if you say that you truly changed, then I would think that you would want this class. And now you're frustrated. Now you're frustrated. Your hope is, you're losing your hope. Your little daughter is growing up and she thought you was coming home after your 10th year, because that's the story that the Republicans told when they passed that law in Michigan called Truth in Sentencing. And they said, this law we are passing because it would deter would-be criminals from committing crime. That was 1999. And you'd have told your loved ones that you would be home in 10 years. Now you're on your 13th year. And you say, Ma, I see the parole board in a few months. And Ma say, I just want you to get home because I haven't been feeling well. Let that sink in, y'all. I just want you to come home because I haven't been feeling well. This is what we're told by our loved ones in prison. I just want you to come home because I haven't been feeling well. And a lot of us brothers and sisters in prison, we only interpret that one way. And we try to hold ourselves together because we don't want to show signs of weakness. and a loved one who wants to be strong, who wants us to believe that they're being strong. We don't want to be weak. So we say, I'll for sure be there. Don't worry about it. I'm going to come out there and take care of you. I'm going to come out there and take care of you. And next thing you know, you receive a call from the case manager saying, come to the office. And they say, sorry to inform you, but your mother just passed away, or your son was just unalived. Your brother was just unalived. And now you thinking to yourself, you're feeling hopeless because you're thinking that I just got my parole, or I'm on my way home. Why couldn't you just live just until I get there? I would have took care of you. I wish I was there to protect my daughter from that guy when he did what he did to her. Those are the challenges we face up under this truth and sentencing law when we're given 10 to 20 years or 5 to 10 years, and we tell our family that I'm going to sit back and I'm going to get my life together. I'll be home in 5 years. And your mother, your father, your brother, your children are waiting. And as hard as it is on them to miss you for one day, they're holding it together and saying that I'll be right here when you get out in that 5th year, that 10th year. I'll be right here. But that's not what Michigan does. Michigan will hold you 14 or 15 years on a 10-year sentence. Michigan prisoners serve the most time than any prisoner in the United States. Michigan has the oldest prisoner population than any prison in the United States. I can't tell you how many of my friends have already served and they're still in prison, and they've already served over 30 years. I can't tell you how many of my friends. I almost served 30. I served 28. A lot of my friends that got out with me served 43 years, 47 years, 51 years, 54. It's a lot of us. I'm asking that y'all share out my live feed. If anything that I'm saying touches you, reaches you, inspires you, enlightens you in any way, or anything that I feel is relevant to you in any way, I'm asking that you share out my live feed. I'm asking that you like and comment. Tell me what your thoughts are about the topic that I'm speaking on right now about we need criminal justice reform. And we need it right now. Not now, but right now. Because our loved ones are simply dying. They're simply dying in prison. And to be truthful, no one is doing anything about it. We have to stand up and force our lawmakers to do something about this mass incarceration trend, because it's only getting worse. Right now, on any given day in Michigan, listen to this number. On any given day in Michigan, 8,000 people are locked up. I'm talking about on that day. 8,000 people are being locked up on that day in Michigan. We should be asking why. Especially when, as we know, the mass majority of that 8,000 people who are being locked up in Michigan are of minority descent. And then Once they're locked up, they're given a bail. Y'all know we ain't got money to pay no bail. So what happens? Whatever the situation is, we just take a plea. That's why Michigan is like number 1 and number 2 in conviction ratings. Because 95% of all convictions in Michigan are plea-based. Because we can't fight. We don't have the financial means to fight against a government that already set the deck against us. We don't have the financial ability to do this. So we surrender and we plead guilty to crime. Sometimes we didn't even commit the crime. Don't even know who committed the crime. But to avoid getting all of this time, 10 to 20, 30 to 60, we'll say, I'll plead guilty. I'll plead guilty to this 12 to 20 years. Because if I don't plead guilty, I'm going to get 20 to 40. So I plead guilty to 12 to 20, even though I didn't commit the crime. Because I was in prison out here. It's called the projects. I was in prison out here. I grew up with no opportunities or didn't understand that I had opportunities. And so I survived by any means. And that meant that I lived in the streets. Unfortunately, the streets became my life. And unfortunately, the streets, all that I came to know. And so we all right. So I'm asking that y'all share out my live feed. I'm gonna be on here for a few more minutes. Share out my live feed. I'm talking about ending mass incarceration. I'm talking about the need for criminal justice reform right now. We need criminal justice reform right now. I know this is not a topic that everybody want to hear and everybody want to talk about. I'm all right with that, right? I'm definitely all right with that, because I can just see from the views that not many people are interested in this, and that's all right. I don't do this for the views. I do this because it's therapeutic for me, and I know it helps so many other people. That's why I do this. I know that someone else needs this information. I know that someone else needs this hope. I know that someone else is asleep right now, and I'm trying to wake them up. I know that someone else feels the same way about being woke. And I know that someone else may feel ashamed to speak up and speak out and let the world know that they're woke. I know that there's someone out there who can relate to what I'm talking about. They can relate to the pain, to the trauma that I'm talking about and that I personally experienced. I know that they can relate to this. So that's why I ask that anyone and everyone, please share out my live feed if you're listening to me. Please share it with someone else. Maybe something that I say don't resonate with you, but you know someone that it resonates with, that it applies to, whom it may help. Maybe you know someone. I'm asking that you pass this information to them. But what I don't want you to do is allow this information to fall on deaf ears. Don't allow this information to fall on deaf ears. Because now we are partly responsible for people staying asleep and not woke. And as long as we stay asleep, the government is going to be tough on crime. They're going to pass bills that further disenfranchise minorities, that clearly expresses the inequality and discrimination with minorities. They're going to pass laws that take away the rights of minorities. They're going to do all these things to dehumanize minorities as long as we stay asleep. So all that I'm trying to do is wake us up and keep us woke. And some people don't even want to hear brothers like me speak like this because they don't want to be affiliated in the public sphere. They don't want to be affiliated with someone being woke, because to be woke to the government is to be radical. And those who are radical tends to be outlaws. And those who are outlaws tend to be labeled anti-American or anti-this or anti-that. Well, if that's the case, I'm all of the above, and I welcome it with no apologies. But I will, and I always will, try to wake my people up. Because the more of us that are woke, the more eyes that we could use to watch and see, and the more hands that we could use to build the future that we know we want for ourselves and for our children. Because again, throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, they have locked up our minority men at a vast rate. They created what is called mass incarceration off the backs of the impoverished people, whom they sectioned off in projects, research projects, and they dropped drugs in our communities, and they dropped guns in our communities, and they infiltrated our minds to create a hatred amongst us that we began to tear one another up, destroy one another, unalive one another, distrust one another, unlove one another, have no concern for one another, have no mercy for one another. All the while, they're creating laws that would criminalize every action and emotion and characteristic that they indoctrinated us to have toward one another. They criminalize our behavior. The very behavior that they created in us, they now criminalize it. And they seek to charge us for the very crimes of, they call it hate crimes. Who taught us to hate? They call it hate crimes. They have race crimes. For real? They got race crimes. Who the hell is racist? The only time a Caucasian person is charged with a hate crime or race crime is when it's big. But if it's something small, they don't even consider it. He wasn't practicing hatred or racism. But they have laws against it if we do it. If I go up into an all-white church or an all-white Dollar Tree, and I say, I want all the black people out of here. Ain't no white people leaving here. I'm being charged with a hate crime, being charged with racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm telling us is that I know someone on here Let me get a little closer because I want to make sure that y'all understand me, see me, and feel me. If it's anyone who's listening to me right now, who is going through or has been impacted directly or indirectly by the criminal injustice system, we need to band together and make criminal justice reform a reality across America. If there's anybody in Michigan within the sound of my voice, I'm sure that if you on my page now, you've seen a lot of my speeches, you've seen me at a lot of rallies, you've seen me at a lot of events, so you know I'm not just talking. I don't just talk it, I walk it. I stand for you, I stand for the people, and I stand against a systemic racist system. And if it's anything that I could do to somehow, some way help you bring your loved one home, you have to get with me and the organization that I work with, which is Michigan Liberation. And we have a large cohort of other organizations that we deal with as far as resources, criminal justice reform matter, data. We have a large cohort of organizations. We fight on behalf of the people for real. We vet politicians. We endorse politicians whom we have vetted and feel that they do represent the complaints and the rights and the thoughts of the people. This is what we do. So I know it's someone on here listening to me, someone within the sound of my voice who has been impacted by the criminal justice system directly or indirectly. And let me tell you, directly means that you've been in jail, arrested or released. You've been subject to the bail system, to where you had to pay a bond to get out of jail. You've been in prison for however long, 1 day or 1 year, it don't matter. 10 years, it don't matter. You've been impacted, or you know someone who have gone through these things or is going through these things. I'm asking that you share my live feed to them. If none of this information that I'm giving you is useful for you, share it with someone else that it can be useful to. That's what I'm asking. That's my ask of you. Because right now, we cannot possibly think that we are all right. We cannot possibly think that we are all right because you have never been arrested. Oh, you've never been arrested. You've never been in the streets. You never used drugs. You never drink. You never been racially profiled. And this don't go for people of just people of African descent. This go for everybody. If you understand, relate to, or know someone who is going through any of the things I'm talking about, share my feed to them. Right now, with this organization, Michigan Liberation, we have what is called Black Mama's Bailout. Whereas it started in 2018, it came to fruition in 2019, to where we began vetting. We'll look up information on Black mothers who were in jail, and needed to be bailed out. We'll vet them, look up the situation, and we'll go bail them out. Out of our own money, we raise money to bail Black mamas out. It's called Black Mamas Bailout. Michigan Black Mamas Bailout, MBO. Michigan Black Mamas Bailout. Look that up. Michigan Black Mamas Bailout. And we would go and bail Black women out So, because we wanted to reunite them with their family, with their children. We started this 5 years ago, right? Just think of this. Think of where I'm about to go. We started this 5 years ago. And it grew from 1 and 2 and 3 mothers on during the Mother's Day to now we start just bailing people out during the Mother's Day and during the other holidays, then during the Christmas. It grew from 3 and 4 and 5 people to 10, 20, and 30 people. And now we have bailed out over 100 people. And we vet them very well because we don't even want to try to go and bail out someone who's committed heinous violent crime or something like that. We're talking about misdemeanor crimes. Some like we had this one young lady. And I'm asking that y'all share out my feed right now. This is some very, very important story I'm about to tell you. It's only going to take 2 minutes, if that. But share out my live feed right now. This is a very important story that I'm about to tell you that relates to us all. But you have to share this story, please. So we had this one young lady. She was 23 years old. We looked her up, seeing what she was locked up for. She was locked up for assault, right? And she was one of the first cases that we ever decided that we were going to bail out for a violent crime. But it was something about her case that drew us to her and kept us interested in her. So we ended up paying her bond. Even though the deputy at the Wayne County Jail looked at our person who was bailing her out at the time and said, you trying to get her out? She's a doozy. Okay. This is how they think of us. She's a doozy. So we pay her bail. So now, after we pay her bail, we're talking to her actually. And she said that she had told the police in the very beginning, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Please look at any of my neighbor's Ring camera and you will see that I was the one assaulted by him, her ex-boyfriend. She was the one assaulted by him and his girlfriend. And the police refused to look on any of the Ring cameras that could have cleared this young lady of any charges or arrest right off the bat. They refused to do any of this type of investigation, which they need to be sued for. So they refused to do this, right? So they arrest the young lady whom I'm going to call Letitia. They arrest her, lock her up. We vet her. We pay her bond. We get her out of jail. However, she was in there 23 days. She's 23 years old. She was in there 23 days. When she gets out, both of her cars had been stolen from her driveway, right? She no longer had a job, lost her job because she was gone 23 days. Her water had been left on because they arrested her so abruptly. So the water had drained into the basement, flooded the basement, all this type of stuff. Her children had been taken away from her because she obviously couldn't care for her children because she was in jail. So now she's out. She discovered everything that she's lost: her home, her cars, her children, her job, her entire livelihood. She's depressed. She's stressed out. She ended up going to court on her case. All charges were dropped. All charges were dismissed against her because they found that she committed no crime. But her mental illness had already sunk in by this time. She still had no children. She still was homeless, without a job, without a car. And do you know the criminal justice system? They never tried to compensate her or try to get her into another home, a car, job, anything. They just let her languish just the way she was. And to this very day, 3 years later, she's still struggling. She don't have her children 3 years later. She suffered from mental illness, trauma created during this 23-day incarceration, unlawful incarceration. She's still going through it. And we are still in contact with her to this very day, trying to help her out, do what we can. That's what our organization is doing. And I'm just telling y'all this story because this is the bail system in Michigan. This is how they arrest. And remember, I told y'all that the highest growing population of inmates and prisoners is Black women. This is just one story. Maybe on another day, I'll tell y'all a few other stories of Black women whom charges were dropped against, for that matter, or whom were just locked up for something simple, but they couldn't pay their bond. And this system just kept them locked up. Not because they were a threat to not coming back to court if they were bonded out, but simply couldn't pay their bond. And so therefore they were not released from jail. They had to stay in jail. And many were forced to plead guilty to a crime just to get it over with, because they wanted to get back out and get back with their family, get back to their lives. A lot of these women were not even bad people at all. Didn't engage in bad behavior, may have ran a stoplight, didn't have insurance on a car, maybe retail fraud or something. But I don't want to hold y'all up any longer. I want to thank everyone for listening to me. And I know I haven't been on here too much lately because I've been so busy doing other things. But I will say that I'm for y'all, I'm with y'all. And if anyone should agree with me or like to hear me talk about a specific topic, please, you can DM me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok for that matter. You can DM me on that, let me know of a topic or a subject or a particular situation that you deem worthy to talk about right now, and we could talk about it. We could put it on the airwaves, because I want us just to remember that as long as we allow the system to control our thinking, we will always be asleep. But the moment that we reach down and feel for the pebbles on the ground and we click them together, we would then begin to see the light, and we could then follow that light to a place where we deserve to be at in life, and we can then be woke. But we cannot live if we are asleep. You only live if you are awake. So wake up, my brothers and sisters. Wake up. With that, I'm going to close saying peace and love to those within the sound of my voice. And for those who cannot hear the sound of my voice, I say pass along the message, because someone needs to be inspired.